जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Thank you for joining. Today we are discussing verse number 8 of chapter number 2 from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And in the previous verse we saw that Arjuna is surrendering to Lord Shri Krishna. And Arjuna said to Lord Krishna that now I am confused about my duty. So previously he gives a lot of argument why he doesn't want to fight. But ultimately he could not resolve what he needs to do. So he is saying that I am confused about my duty, and he surrenders to Krishna by saying that I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So in this verse we see 8th verse, Arjuna continues to speak. So what does he speak? Let's read the verse. So chapter 2 verse 8. Nahi prapashyami mamapnudyad yachokam uchchasanam indriyanam avapya bhaumau asapatnam riddham Rajyam Suranam Apicha Dipatyam. So the translation is, I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win the prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like that of the demigods in heaven. So Arjuna is telling Krishna that nahi prapashyami mamap nudyad. I am not able to see how can anything material solve my problem. So he is having this problem whether he should fight or not, and he doesn't know whether this material knowledge or information he has that is going to resolve his things, and plus he has all whatever material strength, so he's thinking that those strength may not be able to, or will not be able to help him to solve his problem. He's saying yak chokam uchchasanam indriyanam. The chokam over here is actually shoka. So the word chokam is actually yat shokam. Sokam becomes chokam when it is preceded by this word yat. So yat shokam uchchasanam. Uchchasanam means drying up indriyanam. So this shoka, it is choking or it is drying up my senses from within. So we see that a lot of times when we are going through some intense emotions, so there's a physiochemical level changes in the body, and when we are overcome by these emotions, which is very very intense, and that what it does, it dries the liquid from our body, or it soaks up the liquid from the body. So that's why it is Arjuna is feeling that a lot of time when we are going through this kind of emotions, our thoughts get dried. So how that happens? So at the bodily level, the physiochemical level, it dries up the senses. Third is he is saying, the third line C is saying, avapya bhomo asapatnam riddham. Even if I get kingdom without any enemies or any natural problems, then even that is not going to solve my problem. So Rajyam Suranam Apicha Dipatyam. Even if I get a dream-like situation, even if I get a kingdom like the kingdom of the Devata, the thing that is happening to me, like drying up my senses, or the grief which has overtaken me, is not going to go away. So we see that our existence is multidimensional, which at a physical level or at the emotional level, and then at one of our existence at the spiritual level. So these are like three different levels of existence. So most of the time we are only thinking of the physical level or physical protections through different ways, like through the gratification of the senses, or through protecting ourselves with food, clothing, and housing, and all these things. In Hindi it is said roti kapda makan. So this is all at physical level. We try to protect those things. So then the next is the emotional level. So at emotional level, things are normally more intense compared to that of the physical level. If someone has all the physical comforts but emotionally they are in trouble, like troubles in family relationship, or exploitative boss, or problem with the spouse, or some intergenerational issues with the parent-child issues, or any kind of issues these are kind of emotional issues at the lower emotional level. So they are like so tormenting that even if somebody has physical comfort, they do not give comfort, or the physical comfort may not bring us any emotional comfort. So here Arjuna is tormented at an emotional level. So physical gratification, is talking about Rajya, is talking about Rajya compared to that of the Devatas. So this kind of physical gratification will not be able to solve the problem of Arjuna, which is at the level of emotions. So depending on the problems, we need a particular kind of solution. So for example, if the problem is like somebody is hungry, and we tell that person who is hungry that, okay, here there is a nice bed, so you go and sleep on the nice bed. But the problem of hunger is not solved. Even if you give nice bed, even if you give nice clothing, that doesn't solve the problem of hunger. So here we see the wealth cannot solve these problems, or wealth also cannot buy love. So the emotions which is there, which is actually captured the mind of Arjuna, that has to be solved at different level. And in history we have seen the example from Srimad Bhagavatam that Maharaj Chitraketu, he had a very very flourishing kingdom, but since he didn't have any child, it all appeared to him like a garland offered to a hungry man, a starving man. So what is a garland going to do to help the hunger of a person who is hungry? So that's not going to help. So a person who is starving needs food. So similarly, Maharaj Chitraketu had a flourishing kingdom, but he was totally devastated in his heart because he didn't have any children. So when we are talking about these emotions, so the emotions are at two different levels. One is emotion at the spiritual level, and another is emotion at the material level. So if the emotion is at the material level, that drags us down. It entangles us in the material life, like what we are seeing in case of Arjuna. But then there are spiritual emotions. So those emotions which are spiritual in nature, actually they bring closer to Krishna. So this is how we distinguish whether this emotion is material or is it spiritual. Over here, Arjuna is lamenting, and his situation is, his emotion is at the material level. But he is intelligent enough to surrender to Krishna. And then Krishna is going to solve his problem. So basically, how to get out of these emotions when we are overwhelmed with the emotion at the material level. So what we should do is, of course, we need sometimes some temporary solution to get relief. But the permanent solution would be to make sure that our emotions are always connected with Krishna. So when our emotions are connected with Krishna, then what happens? Gradually, we are purified, or purification happens. Then purification means elevation in consciousness, and then eventually the soul can get liberated from this material body. Also, when the soul is experiencing the emotions, he is going into ecstasy. So this is how we deal, or how to get out of this clutches of the emotions. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada continues the thought process from the previous purport. So in the previous purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about that when we have these material problems, then the only way to resolve these material problems is to approach a spiritual master. So Prabhupada begins with that there is a need of spiritual master to solve the problems, material problems of life. And in this purport, he continues that thought from the previous purport. So in the previous purport, how to surrender to a guru is given. And in this verse, Srila Prabhupada talks about the qualification of a guru. And there are few references which Prabhupada has cited from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Padma Puran to let us know the qualification of guru. So let's read the purport given by Srila Prabhupada. So first point is the need of a spiritual master. So although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on the knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes. So Arjuna was talking about Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. It appears that he was unable to solve his real problems without the help of a spiritual master, Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexity without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Sri Krishna. So Arjuna was intelligent enough to identify that his problem he will not be able to solve on his own. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. So we also see that, sometimes in our life, all the education or whatever we have, money or position, so those are unable to help to solve our problems at the emotional level. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying, therefore the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna consciousness is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problem of life. So spiritual master is a person who is strained in this spiritual life. He has experienced himself. He lives the life according to the Shastra or according to the instructions of Lord Krishna. So such a person who is coming in parampara is a bona fide spiritual master, and he can solve the problem of life. So then Prabhupada is bringing up the point, who can become a spiritual master? Lord Chaitanya said that one who is the master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is a real spiritual master. So Lord Chaitanya says, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Sudra Kananai Ye Krishna Tattva Vitta Say Guru Hoy. It doesn't matter whether a person is Vipra or learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in lower family, or in a renowned order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect bona fide spiritual master. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 8, verse number 128. So one is a spiritual master if he understands Krishna. He is the essence of Vedas. Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 15, verse 15, Vedescha sarveraham eva Vedyam. Means after studying all the Vedas, Krishna is saying, I am to be known. So somebody who knows Krishna, so Mahaprabhu is saying, whether he is a Vipra, whether he is a scholar, or he is even born in a lower family, it doesn't matter. Or he is a renowned order of life, or he is just somebody the following the household life. But if a person understands Krishna, the Krishna Tattva, understand Krishna in truth, so that kind of or such kind of person is actually a spiritual master. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, nobody is bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in Vedic literature, so this is given in Padma Puran itself, Sat karma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visharadaha Avaishnava guru nasyad, Vaishnava swa sapako guruha. So a scholarly Brahmana, expert in all Vedic subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava. Vaishnava means one who follows Vishnu, means Krishna, or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or a Krishna consciousness. So here Swach Pacho means somebody who is even lower class, Prabhupada has translated, but somebody who is a dog eater, who eats dog. So that much lower class person also, if he is actually a Vaishnava, then that person can be considered as a spiritual master. So the next point Prabhupada talks about is, what is the real problem? What is the real problems of life? The problems of material existence, birth, death, old age and disease, these are the four real problems of life. So real problems, so problems is such a thing that, sometimes problem in this material world can be individual. Like if I have a problem, you don't have the same problem. So sometimes one person's problem becomes other person's gain actually. Like for example, somebody is becomes sick, then the doctor is happy because then the doctor is going to make money. Or if somebody's car is broken, so that's a problem, and then the mechanic is happy. So one person's problem can be other person's solution or happiness. So when can something be problem? So that falls into a category that if the problem is common to all, then it's a problem. Then second is nobody wants it, and the third thing is if nobody can avoid it. So what are those problems which satisfy these three criteria? It is common to all, nobody wants it, but nobody can even avoid it. So scripture says, Vedic literature says that these are the things: birth, old age, disease and death. This is common to all, nobody wants it. Of course everybody wants birth, but the child who is in the womb is actually really suffering during the birth, the process of birth. But as soon as the child comes out, he forgets. Of course we know that nobody wants old age, nobody wants diseases. Now this corona is going on, nobody wants to be getting infected by corona. So that's why so much protection has been taken place, and nobody wants to die. So these are the real problems, and these problems are, the Vedic literature says that in human form of life, the goal should be to solve these problems: birth, old age, disease and death. And how do we solve that? So that cannot be solved. Here Prabhupada is saying the problems of material existence cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. No matter how much money somebody accumulates in life, they are billionaire, trillionaire or whatever, doesn't matter, but they have to go through this. They don't want it, but their money cannot help them overcome these problems. They have to go through the old age, they have to go through disease and finally die. So Prabhupada continues, in many parts of the world there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed, yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitutes the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. Right? So we need to approach a spiritual master to solve the real problems of life. So this is what even Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada further continues that the futility of economic development to solve the real problems of life. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentation for family, social, national or international inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planet would be unable to drive away his lamentations. So Arjuna is a very qualified man, and he understood that whatever economic prosperity I have, or even if I get more, that is not going to drive away my lamentation. So therefore he sought therefore refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysm of material nature. This is a very true statement. When things are going good, we forget about this. Whatever we have developed economically, it can be taken away in a moment's time. Like if some big earthquake happens, or if big tornadoes happen, the entire city, or if big tsunami happens. We have seen it in Japan. Like within hours, the entire city was destroyed. So this is possible. So what kind of economic development or what kind of protection we can do for ourselves? Practically nothing. So even elevation to higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished in one stroke. So this all material nature can destroy in no time. And this is what we are seeing, in our day-to-day experience. But we don't take notice of all this. But if somebody is lucky, then they read this and they read the purports given by Srila Prabhupada, and they try to ponder upon or think about this, and then turn towards Krishna for solution. So what solution is recommended in Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Shine punya mritya lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians in the world have fallen down in this way. Such fall down only constitutes more causes for lamentation. So this is the most important line, saying that it is going to shine punya mutya lokam vishanti. We can enjoy in the heavenly planets for some time, but a time will come that when our karma is all exhausted, and then we again come down to this material world. And that is a big lamentation because of great situation which we were in the heavenly planets. Now all those facilities are gone. So then the soul comes down to this world, and this is a great cause of lamentation. Therefore, Prabhupada says in in the last paragraph, it is, if we want to curb lamentations for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve this problem, definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness. So what is the way of Krishna consciousness? The way of Krishna consciousness is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is coming in parampara. So with this, we'll stop here. And before stopping, this purport, I put in presentation format, where the left side is talking about solving the perplexity of life or the problems of life. So this side is talking about that academic knowledge, scholarship and positions are useless, and the temporary nature of the economic development and world supremacy means economic development cannot solve the problems of material existence. So whatever points are given here, it's put in terms of points. Whatever points are given in the purport is put over here in the in terms of the slides, so we can understand properly. And then on this side is the solution. So the only Krishna consciousness or only Krishna or his representative spiritual master can help. And then what is the qualification of a spiritual master, right? So first is the definition, and the second is the references which is been given in the purport. And this is the punchline, that only way to real happiness is given, which is given in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, is to consult Krishna through his representative, that is bona fide spiritual master. So in order to solve the problems of life, one must submit to a bona fide spiritual master. Tad Vijnanatham sa gurum eva abhigachet. One must surrender to a spiritual master. So with this, we'll stop here and continue the discussion in next session. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.